When God first gave his people the Ten Commandments, the first group of instructions for life, he made sure to include this as one of the first things he said: honor your father and mother.
In Ephesians, Paul reminds the church, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. Obedience to God's ways is a hallmark of God's people. Those who love the Lord follow him and obey him. And when our hearts are turned to him, we joyfully walk in his ways.
God designed the parent-child relationship to reflect his relationship with each of us. He expects parents to live sacrificially, to care for their children, to exhibit patience, to extend forgiveness, to promote maturity, and to pursue wisdom.
But he also has expectations of children, and those include obedience and respect. In fact, teaching obedience is one of the responsibilities of all parents. In this video, we'll share one definition of obedience that may help you as you raise your child.
Obedience doesn't always come naturally. For most of us, it has to be taught. And trust doesn't form instantaneously. Like Coach Gillum shared in an earlier video, it tends to be earned. Most children reach an age where they don't crave rules, but we know that they do thrive when predictable expectations are in place. Children rarely ask for guardrails, but when clear expectations are present, children can grow and learn and play safely and develop into their God-given potential.
I want to share with you a definition of obedience that's helped our family. Especially when our kids were small, I found myself constantly repeating this to them. When we obey the first time, all the way, with a happy heart.
I love that. The first time, all the way with a happy heart. Let's talk about the first element. Obedience requires responding. Our world is influencing our children and teaching them that you really don't have to do things until you've received a few reminders. Maybe you've hit the snooze button 10 times. We've taught our children that obedience requires a response whenever they hear a directive and when they know the first time what needs to be done.
Immaturity relies on multiple reminders. A disobedient mindset is comfortable disregarding a parent's instruction. Your child may be thinking, well, if it's really important, my mom and dad will come back and insist on it, or they'll just do it for me. But we as parents have to be consistent with our children. The truth is that every conversation we have with our child matters. We must be clear with our instructions and expect our children to obey the first time they understand what's being asked. This may take a little patience on our part, but it's worth it.
The second element is all the way. Our culture will try to teach our children that halfway is good enough, or that surface level effort is sufficient. But we know that our world actually rewards people with high standards, people that know how to be thorough and conscientious. And Jesus gives us an even higher standard. In Matthew 5, Jesus tells his followers that we are called to be extra mile people, to have hearts that are eager to serve and obey and meet the needs of others, to give more generously and serve more readily than anyone else.
The final element of obedience for our family is with a happy heart. I'm reminded of a verse in Isaiah. You will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. As Christians, we don't always want to walk in God's ways, but we choose to walk in his ways because we trust him, and this brings peace. We want our children to know that they can trust us. By teaching them to trust and obey with a happy heart, we are protecting them from the pain and shame and regret that follows disobedience. Anything we ask them to do, even if it may seem like a chore or something they don't want to do, is a good thing because it serves our family and creates peace in our home. We want obedience to be something that emphasizes and re-emphasizes the trust we have in one another. Begrudgingly doing something with a sour attitude may get the job done, but it won't strengthen a relationship. Choosing to obey with a happy heart builds trust and brings peace.
The reality is that when children obey their parents, it helps them create a world that is better for them. It won't ever surprise us when children don't prioritize cleaning their room, or cleaning up after themselves in the kitchen, or laying out their clothes, or thinking about the future. But as they mature, they'll begin to see the importance of being a self starter and embracing responsibility. But for those years where they're not yet mature enough to rely on their own instincts, we pray that God puts mentors in their path that will give them direction. Mentors like their parents.
And when God honoring direction comes, and it most often comes from parents, we want our children to embrace a spirit of obedience, to do what's asked the first time, all the way with a happy heart.